Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys here, and thanks for joining us as February 7th and 8th rolls along here. And market moving along. People are pretty busy. There's a lot of buyers out there. It's that time of the year, but it's also the time of the year where it generally slows down. You know, down in the Ashland MLS meetings in the last few weeks, it's been very slim pickings, very few new listings, only a few houses on the tours, and sometimes there's like 27 of those things. And so that just tells you what's going on a little bit right in the market there.
It's interesting. We really had a good December, January, February stretch there. And had a lot of activity and a lot of sales that normally that's where we kind of flatten out in the dead of the winter and around the holidays. Yeah. But that activity reflects the demand that's out there, and people want houses. It's just hard to find them right now.
We'll see what happens as spring rolls along. Well, one of the smartest things the voters of Jackson County ever did was back in 2006 when they approved a 5-cent property tax levy to support the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
It was the first. It was the first of what became a trend in the state of small property tax levies of 5 cents to fund essential things that were just being tossed around politically by commissioners, et cetera, et cetera.
And I've said since then that if we could get our money's worth out of that 5 cents per thousand we do with JSWCD, with all of our agencies, we've moved forward in a big way.
Yeah, it was the best $13.75 of my property tax that I paid this year. Let me tell you. And yours is even less. Yeah. Well, anyway, the JSWCD is charged with, of course, being good stewards of land and water and helping us all do those things and know what our natural environment is around us and how to make it better, how to improve and enhance the value of rural properties. And just to tell you how much rural properties are, in the latest SOMLS stats, in that 3-month period, 120 rural properties were sold from 5 acres and under, 5 to 10 acres and over that. It's still the highest median price are rural properties. And basically over the course of a year, you have about 500 new people who live on rural properties in Jackson County. And that's kind of sets a story up to why Angie Boudreau has joined us here today, because Angie is a former JSWCD employee, now independent contractor. And you were on our show before. And how are you doing? Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And a new mother to be, a new mother as well.
Yeah, life has changed a lot in the last 6 weeks.
Yes, and it'll last forever, believe me.
Yes.
And Angie, the one thing we always advise people, the one thing you don't want to do with your children is don't co-sign a note with your children. That's the one thing we always want to tell people about that.
I've already told her that. She's going to be independent.
We call that Pete's parenting.
Yeah, that's my quote for the day. Anyway, Angie, you, of course, work in the natural resource area, and your guys are here today, and it's nice to have you. You're still living out in the country and doing the whole thing, aren't you?
We are.
Yeah, very Absolutely. Good. Next with Angie is Charlie Boyer, and Charlie is one of the founders, Joe, of the pasture management classes, that he and Randy White founded back in 2006. Charlie, nice to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Now, you tell us because you're out by Agate Road and Eagle Point. What kind of a place do you have out there?
We've got a 60-acre farm out there, and we raise sheep and hay, and we've been practicing the principles we teach in this pasture class since 1991 when we first moved to that property.
Yeah, and if Joe and I came out to your property, we would really be impressed, wouldn't we, by the pasture and the way that your place looks? I have a feeling. Is that right?
I would hope so.
Answer, yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and
Really?
he probably won't say that, but he does an excellent job, and I think when people see that, they see that the principles really can work.
Yeah. I bet that's true. I'd love to see your place, actually, because I'd love to see that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, come out when it's not raining and so muddy.
It's not supposed to have mud. That's one of the things about we learned out of here. Well, anyway, nice to have you here, Charlie. And also Clinton Nichols, who's the rural planner for the JSWCD, has joined us as well. And Clinton, nice to see you. How are you doing?
Nice to see you.
What do you do in the winter out there? Winter is a different time when you work with natural resources because of mud and you just can't get anywhere and stuff. So what are you guys doing out there right now during the wintertime?
We do a lot of planning. We're still doing a lot of visits, talking to people about, all sorts of different subjects. But yeah, right now we're doing a lot of planning, sitting down with clients, talking about what we can do for them when everything dries out a little bit. So
yeah, it's pretty wet to do much now. And since you've been here in the district, and I know you're an SOU grad, I would say that again. Since you've been starting down there and been going out and meeting with people, tell me what your sense is that people are they getting it? I mean, is it getting through as you own these properties that there's really something you can do to make them better?
I think so. I think a lot of people are, they sense that they have some struggles. Everybody has that that part of their property that they have problems with and not really sure what they should do about it. But there's definitely the concern. And I think what's great about what the district is doing now is we're really trying to get our name out there. We're trying to show that we're partnering with all these other organizations, all these other agencies, and really trying to heighten the awareness of what we can do, that technical support that we give. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things that we can offer people is just come out to the property, help them kind of navigate their way through some of these problems that they might be having. And it's a huge value, I think, to the citizens of Jackson County.
And we've seen some of the projects that you have worked on, and it's amazing how you can actually turn around properties and make them so much, I guess, environment-friendly, whatever you want to say to them, than what they were. So, Angie, what have you got cooking? You guys, I know it's about proper management of these properties. I mean, that's really what you're about, and I know that the pasture classes that you have, and it doesn't really matter, does it, if I have a 5-acre place or a 60-acre place like Charlie? I mean, what does it take? When should someone really come forward as to say, I need some help here, I need to learn more?
Well, we love working with people before they buy their property.
That's a good point.
Because we have worked, both when I was at the district and as an independent consultant, we've worked with folks who've bought a piece of property and their goals don't match the property, and trying to force a property to do something that it really doesn't have the potential for is a recipe for disaster. So ideally, if you don't know, contact an expert, contact somebody who can help you identify the type of property you need.
Boy, that's something that real estate brokers should know in terms of that. Isn't that true? Because you're right. Some people are going to come in and say, I want a vineyard and I want this property, and it may not have...
It may not have water rights. It may not have the right soil. It may not have the right aspect. I mean, there's just so many aspects to finding the right property.
Yeah,
and we just have seen a lot of wrecks. So
it's going to be a standard practice of mine. The next call I get for a rural property, and everyone after that, is going to be contact the folks at JSWCD and get the ball rolling there, because that's a one-stop place where you get everything you need, really get squared away as to what you want and where you can get it and where it's at.
I call people, whether it's forest reserve lands, where you have forest lands or ag properties, whatever. It's calling you guys. Serious. That's really true. I do that all the time. Absolutely. Because I ask them those same questions. What do you want to do with this land? And some people have really, some are clueless. I just want 5 acres. I mean, it comes down to that sometimes too, doesn't it?
But if they just want 5 acres, then we come into that whole question about EFU versus rural residential, what you can do on those properties, the regulations, the tax breaks, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll put this in there because this is one of the most common misconceptions we see. If there's water running through your property, it does not mean you have water rights.
It does not mean it's yours.
So that's a really, really critical thing.
Yeah.
But going back to your original question, call as soon as if you already have property, call as soon as you think you have a problem, because I'd so much rather work with somebody early in the problem. And again, the Jackson Soil and Water District is, it's non-regulatory. And so none of us are out there to get you. We're not, even us as private consultants, we're looking to help. We're not going to say, oh my goodness, you really messed this up. We're not going to say that. We just want to help fix it and move towards something better.
Charlie, when you and Randy White started this thing, conditions of pastures, conditions of our lands around here were what would you say back in the early 90s?
Well, they were basically about what they were. Remember, in 1992 and 1994, we went through essentially very short water years. We actually went through the drought period there. Excuse me. Randy had just come over to the district from OSU. He was the pasture and livestock extension agent over there. And he came to the district, and I was on the district board at the time, and we had a long talk about management and some of the things that we felt that his experiences with the OSU extension, and there really wasn't a local replacement for him, what we could do about trying to replace some of those things. And we, after a long talk, we came up with this concept, and he put together a request for a grant to write a 9-week course on pasture management. And for the next, we were granted that from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and for the next several months, he and I spent down there together at the district office writing a 9-week, very intense pasture management course. It was the basis for what we have here. And that was the beginning of this whole thought process of trying to get people to take a piece of land that they have if they're going to run livestock, is to get the most out of that piece of property, the most out of their livestock, and leave it in decent shape for future generations. And it's based on some principles that's been around since way back, but practiced in New Zealand, in France, Argentina, Ireland, Brazil, and other parts of Europe. These concepts have been around for hundreds of years. They just kind of come and go, and that whole process.
And
So
how
that's
are we doing here? Are we making improvements? Or are we close to these other places? Or tell me where you think we stand.
I think we're the new property owners that are
And
coming
there's
in.
lots of them. Lots of them.
I think those folks we're making pretty good progress with. One of the problems we have is, I hate to say this on the air, but it's the cowboy image concept.
I can do what I want, kind of thing. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
it's not that. It's not that. It's the way it's been done traditionally.
Oh, okay.
And the concepts we talk about are not traditional in this country.
Okay.
If you were to go to any of the countries that I spoke about, those countries, that's how they do business. We do it different here, and we've done it this way for a long time because got to remember, we started with no fences, and then we had fences, and then we still do big pastures, and we do things differently.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Interesting thing. Now, Angie, if I and you mentioned EFU, and I want to make sure that people get this because many times when you're showing rural properties and you look, of course, on the zonings and the kinds of areas you see EFU, you see rural residential 5, you see all sorts of numbers. In EFU, that special exclusive farm use designation really does mean something for classes like what you're doing. Doesn't explain that to people so they know that, because it's not, I mean, you can really get messed up here if you're not careful, right?
Right. So EFU stands for Exclusive Farm Use, and it's an assessment placed on rural properties. And really, there's no size limit. It can be on very small properties.
Right.
But to maintain your EFU status, which grants quite a substantial tax break,
Yes, it does.
you do need to be involved in production agriculture and attempting to make a profit. And again, I don't work for the assessor's office, so they can give you all the details and the ins and outs. But it is possible to lose that assessment, and it is very expensive if you lose that.
If you lose it.
And it does take several years to regain it if it is lost. So
the person who, and I had a client who wanted to buy 5 acres, wasn't going to do anything with it. I just on 5 acres, I want to be apart from everybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. And it was an EFU property. And I said something about that and kind of shrugged that off. And we didn't buy that. But it does make a difference here. You have to do something with your property to get that tax lower bill.
correct. Yeah.
It's to maintain that tax exemption that is on agricultural properties. And to give you a real life example, we had a client that was up in the Ashland area, and they had 5 acres and very high value property. And because of the exemption that they had, I believe they were paying roughly $2,000 a year in taxes on that property, and they were maintaining it and stuff like that. In their particular case, if they had lost that exemption, it would have went to $10,000 a year. That's a significant increase in taxes.
Absolutely. We've seen that happen, and it's absolutely true. You see some amazing rural properties, EFUs, with very low taxes, but they have to be producing something, right? So even if it's producing vegetables to go to the farmer's market, I mean, you can do that kind of thing with that. But be careful, because there's those EFU statuses, you have to maintain that. Do you see those problems out there? Do people aware of those things that you guys come across and see? You talk to these people more than I do.
I think there are people who definitely are not aware of it, and there's a lot of misconceptions, and that's why I do tell people talk to the assessor's office, because there's some details there. But for example, horses do not help you maintain your EFU status, because
Just having a horse.
right, there needs to be an intent to earn income. Now, if you're breeding horses and selling offspring or have a riding facility there or boarding or something, potentially you can maintain your EFU, but simply having a pet does not do that. Yeah. There needs to be a plan in place. And if you get yourself into some gray areas, they're going to want to see that you have a plan to make a profit.
Plans are good. Clint.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of the clients that I have worked with, that's one of the reasons why they're working with us is because they know about that EFU status and they want to keep it. So they come to us, they ask us about, okay, I want to do, I want to set up a better irrigation system on my property. I want to talk about cross fencing for rotational grazing. I want to reseed my pasture for hay, or my pasture, but my fields for hay. Those sorts of questions. So.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear that people are actually doing that, because you don't want to lose those types of status. And you say you have to have plans. We're up against a break here. When we come back, I want to hear about some of the plans that people make and you're taking your classes, because one of the things, this is not just to sit in there, like Joe and I like to do. We like to go to class and just sit and listen, not have to
see
do
who's
much.
there.
see who's there, talk to people. No, but we actually, you have to make plans in these classes. I mean, this isn't for the meek here. You got to do something. But what a difference it makes in your property. That's here on the Real Estate Show. This show repeats at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. And all of our shows, you can watch them at youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. We have a TV show coming up this Tuesday at 6 o'clock live on Charter Cable. The Real Estate Show continues here on KMED this weekend, February 7th and 8th of 2014. Pete Belcastro here with you. And thanks for joining us here on the Real Estate Show this weekend. Next week, we'll have a Market Watch show for you. Bob Gervais from RE/MAX will be along, and we'll update you on those SOMLS stats and what they mean here in winter, which is so far it looks like it's going to be, we've been saying, the guests on our show for the last 4 months, I suppose, all been saying the same thing. 2015 is going to be a big year, a lot of activity, a lot of things happening, and I certainly have no reason to disagree with them at all. Today here on the show, the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District is charged with having us learn to be good stewards of our land and water, and they've been doing that pretty successfully for a number of years here. Angie Boudreau, and as an independent consultant, and so is Charlie Boyer and Clint Nichols, who's a rural planner for the JSWCD, are here today. I got through all of that stuff with you guys, but anyway, tell me what plans, when you have pasture classes and all the classes, so many that you do, people walk away with something important. And that's a plan, right? I mean, that's what this is about, right? This is what you end up doing at the end of the 9 weeks that I take this thing. And what kind of a plan? Give me an example of what those might be like. That's something that would be interesting that a good plan come out of there with.
Well, if we can get these folks in the whole process, when we go through this, we start off with a goal setting thing. So they actually have gone through a thought process about what they really, really want from that piece of property. And then we set out to help them actually design a program to achieve that and still maintain what they describe as an effective lifestyle. What do you really want besides raise cows or sheep or whatever? Because that can be a totally self-consuming task. But if we help them design this thing right, it doesn't take all their time. You can still have time to do the things like go to the ball game with the kids, those sort of things. And it will take care of the land. That's the whole goal. That's why Jackson Soil and Water is so heavily involved in this, is because we want to keep the soil in the right place, and we want any water that goes onto that property to be used effectively and to not come off of there. If you have any runoff at the bottom end of the field, it's clean and goes back into the system as clean and as cold as what had come off of there. What it went onto that property.
Boy, isn't that the mission of the district? I mean, you just summed that up
that's why they're involved.
There, didn't you? Go ahead. All right, well, anyway, tell me what's the weirdest things you've seen, Angie, in terms of plans done. Has there been some strange ones that have been turned around, or just kind of give me an example with some people? I can imagine I can imagine what some people have ideas about what they think they can do. Tell me some weird ones or something. Do you have any ideas might that be, or it's just some interesting ones that you've actually seen?
I don't know that I've seen any really strange ones. The thing is, everybody comes to this class differently. They come from different backgrounds. They come with different goals. And our goal is to maintain the land and help them develop a plan within those goals. And their goals may be very different than the goals Charlie or I would have at that same property. But that's their goal, and they're the owner. And so that's what we work with them on.
And they're getting it.
Well, I think that's what Angie said is the key. If you want me to write a plan for you, I'll do it. But it'll be based on my values and what I think your property ought to do. And if by going through this process that we go through with this class, we try to get people to a point where what happens on their property is what they want to have happen onto their property, and we'll help try to design that. And that's why when we get through the 9 weeks, they're probably not going to be all the way to the end goal. What they're going to be is on the journey to get there. And that's why we have this continuing on advanced, we call it continuing education or advanced group, where these people, and we continue, thank goodness for the district helps do this, but we continue on with them, those folks, for at least a year to try to help them define and refine those individual goals.
And implement them.
There you go.
And implement the goals and make sure you're working. Has the GMO debate, okay, has that driven any people into talking to you guys about properties and the use of them in the future? Because no matter what, the GMO vote is here, and it's, I know there's lawsuits, and I know there's controversy, that kind of thing, but is that driving any of this at all?
I think there's two aspects to that. One is whether somebody's for or against GMOs, that's a personal choice and a personal feeling they have, and we will work with folks regardless.
Sure.
That's just a goal they have. It's a value they have, and we work within that. Now, there are certainly landowners who, because of the recent vote, and unless things are changed, they will have to change what they grow.
Right.
And we can work with them to come up with alternative crops. But we don't take a side on that at all.
No, I'm not
it's just
taking
the
a side,
value.
but are just people talking about it when they
of course.
come into rural properties? Tell me what your experience is, because again, I think it's going to be a big driver of rural property values in the future years when the thing is all settled out.
Well, I think there's what Angie said is absolutely true, and we all have our opinions about where that's at. But in this class, in the scenario that we work under, we make it very clear when we start this class at the very beginning. This is a pasture management class, and it's not a philosophical class on GMO, non-GMO, organic, non-organic, all of those sort of things. That's not what this is about. We're talking about land management, livestock management, clean water, and good soil management. That's what we're about, and we really make that very clear at the very beginning, because we could spend the entire 9 weeks arguing about a topic that we're not going to ever get a solution to.
Let me throw one more out at you then. Tell me about how the legalization of marijuana is going to affect what you're doing, because again, I think these things are going to have an effect on rural properties and rural landowners much more than they are going to be on urban dwellers. Am I crazy there? Is that right, you think?
I think there's only one thing that I'd like to say, and the rest I'll leave to Angie and Clint on the rest of it. I think there's a misunderstanding by a lot of people growing marijuana that where they're getting their water, and I think that's the one big elephant in the room that nobody's talked about. If you can't raise commercial crops with a standard well for your house, that's a no-no.
Right.
You're limited to production for your garden and your lawn up to a certain acreage, a quarter acre, half acre, but it's not for resale. That's one. And I do know that there are folks that have medical marijuana farms that are hauling water from the city of Medford, and the same issue comes up. It's a water issue, and I think they're probably crossing the line there. So that's all I'll say on that, folks. When you're buying real estate, if that's what you want to do, make sure you got the water.
And again, for real estate brokers, as we go through this, you have to be really careful. People want to do this. I mean, people want this, and they ask you questions, and there are no answers, I found. I mean, there's no... But what you said is absolutely true about the water issue that has not been talked about, Charlie. You're right, Angie.
Well, I agree. That was where I was going to. I see water being a huge issue, the illegal use of water. And of course, if people are pumping water that they do not have rights to, people with legal rights are going to be short.
Yeah.
And of course, we're in a drought year. So I see some real conflicts around water coming down the pike. certainly from a real estate standpoint, I know my husband and I were in escrow on a piece of property, and the neighbor's marijuana grow crossed the property line.
Okay, yeah.
And it took months to resolve. So, I mean, there's those issues, but as far as the pasture management class, it will not affect what we teach
No.
because we don't talk about that kind of grass. So,
But you talk about water. You
But
talk
we
about
do
kind
talk
of
about
uses
water.
of your land and the kinds of
Absolutely.
things and plans out of that thing. Well, who would have ever thought, I mean, 6 months ago or so that we're talking about legalization of marijuana and GMO-free crops and GMO. I mean, it's the whole world almost is just turned upside down, haven't it? I mean, it really has, I think. Now tell me one more thing that as you do this, and Charlie may be the one here, what you've gone through, obviously your property is producing and doing this thing, and you have actually been able to reduce consumption of hay, and you're able to actually graze off these properties year round with your animals. Is that true? Can you do that?
Well, yes, we do that for the most part on our place. I think the prime example, though, is not my place. It's a student that took our class.
That did that. We're up against. Hold the thought. I want you to finish that when we
we'll
come
let
back
Angie-
there, because that is really an interesting thing to me. Well, the Real Estate Show here on KMED, AM 1440, FM 106.7. One more segment to go here with the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. JSWCD.org is the website. You can get a lot of this information at. For this show repeats 9 o'clock Sunday morning, and we are coming right back after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcastro here with you. Hey, don't forget this coming Tuesday, the 10th at 6 o'clock on Charter Cable Channel 180 and AFN Channel 9. We have a real estate show coming there, Market Watch show in the first half hour, and the JSWCD will be on our second half hour of that show as well. We're going to continue actually talking about these classes and pasture classes and meet some of the people who've done this and actually look at some pictures of before and after, because it actually is true. This actually can do. One thing I love about the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District is the fact that you want people to use their land properly and just don't lock it up and leave it, but it can be useful and you can use it sustainably and the kinds of things that you always talk about. Anyway, we're with Angie Boudreau, Clinton Nichols, and Charlie Boyer here on the Real Estate Show today. Before we left there, we were talking about winter. Used to think of wintertime, you got to feed a lot of hay. I mean, you put up hay all summer. Charlie puts up hay, to feed it during the winter. But we're actually seeing, because people have taken such good care of their land, you can actually now not feed as much or even eliminate that. Is that true?
right, that's the goal that we really move folks towards. And it's a combination of managing the land correctly and having a plan. You have to plan ahead for winter because, of course, forage production really drops in the winter.
Yeah.
So Charlie kind of gave the lead-in of one of our students who took our class and then went on and continued educating himself and working these principles. And a few years back, I'm just going to give some rough numbers. I believe he has 15 or 16 animals on approximately 12 acres. And over the course of that winter, he fed 6 bales of hay.
6 bales of hay.
6 bales of hay. So not a ton of hay. His animals were fat and happy, and there was no mud.
And no mud. And we didn't have any snow almost, but even though that's pretty impressive, isn't that? Jeez, it's just a feed.
These principles work. These principles work. People just have to put them into place.
I think that's what you say in the end, isn't it? That the principles do work. Charlie.
So on those 16 animals there, if he normally would feed somewhere around a ton to a ton and a half in a winter for each one of those. You imagine how much money he made off of those 16 animals if he fed 6 bales?
And how much money he saved. What is a ton of hay going for today?
Oh, roughly about $230 up.
$230 up.
Up.
Wow. And it could even be worse if we have another dry year like we're going to see as well. So, boy, you're right. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Before we run out of time, Clinton Nichols wants to share with you some events coming up. These are not all sponsored by the JSWCD, but they're very important for you to pay attention to because you may want to actually participate and do some of this stuff, right? I mean, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of things going on. First of all, for some of the audience who might have large or commercial or larger agricultural properties that they're working on, we're working together with an organization called Clean Harbors. And what the program is, it's basically a pesticide collection event. And so what we're allowing people to do is bring in their unused, possibly legacy herbicides, pesticides, those sort of things. It's completely anonymous. You can bring these things in, drop them off. The event is going to be held at Rogue Disposal You bring these again, these
At
pesticides
their
in.
main collection place
Yes.
over here, Kirkland Road. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, bring
All
it
right.
off. You'll drop it off, and they basically cart it away. The
So
event's
they're not going to charge you.
Nope.
They're
Nope.
not going to come back and say, where did you get this stuff?
No,
right?
it does require registration. So if you go out to the jswcd.org website, there's a form that you can download to register. But that registration is simply so that the people who are coming down to collect these know what's coming and they can plan for what you're going to be bringing. But it's completely anonymous. And again, it's really for the large scale producers, commercial agriculture. If there's institutions that have, again, these legacy pesticides that they're trying to finally get rid of.
So this is stuff back in the back of the barn that's been there somewhere.
Yep.
Now, do you see this kind of stuff out there when you're out in the field? Do you see a lot of this stuff?
I really don't, because I work with a lot of smaller landowners.
Okay.
So again, this is for people who have a lot of land that they do treat
And use a lot of
commercial-
pesticides on.
Exactly.
And what day is this pesticide pickup recycle deal going to happen?
It's on March 7th.
Okay, March
which
7th.
is a Saturday, and it's from 8 to 2. But again, you want to register on the it's not you're registering on the JSWCD website. That's where you get the form.
The form,
and then
okay.
you mail that into the place, the contact that will be on the form.
All right. What else you got cooking?
So the Southern Oregon, the Oregon State University Extension Office, as part of their land steward program, they have every year they put on a Living on Your Land conference. And this year, they've actually combined it with another conference that they have called the Tree School. And so what this basically is, it's a day-long series, intense series of courses that they can take, everything from forestry issues to land management, invasive species eradication, plant health, plant pests, even there's topics on geology, small farm operations, all these sorts of things. So that's a really big event that's going on. That's actually going on in Grants Pass at the RCC campus out there.
And what day is that?
On April 25th.
Okay.
So that's a really great thing for landowners in Jackson and Josephine County.
Absolutely.
And then also, just want to start getting the word out. We have every year we do a day camp for kids here in Jackson County.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 days, and it's a great activity. Really low cost for families. It only runs $50. And that's for a whole week, 5 days of activities for kids, teaching them about natural resources. We do forestry stuff. We do ranch stuff, farm stuff.
It's the most amazing camp I've ever seen. And it should be, parents would love to have their children go on it or their grandkids. And so if you know that, you need to sign. Can you sign up now for it already? Is it you're ready for that, or just awareness of it?
Yeah, we're still just trying to spread the word out.
It's coming in June.
Yeah, we geared it towards 5th and 7th graders,
right?
Those who are going into those grades as they complete that year of school. And we're shooting for June 22nd through 26th.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are good things to know and good things to have. We're almost out of time. So, Angie, tell me the class. Tell me about how people can get into this thing if they want to get a hold of you, and if someone wants to talk to Charlie too. But how can they get a hold of you? I guess.
So as far as the class registration is full, but we encourage them to call the district, put their name on a list to be contacted next year. There's no obligation, but at least they'll get notified of the upcoming class.
Mm-hmm.
So they can contact the district, of course, at 541-664-1070, extension 3. And then if folks want to reach me directly, my number is 541-890-4014, or my email at angelaboudreau@gmail.com.
All right. And Charlie, good luck to you. You got to love this, because this is like you're and Randy's baby.
Yeah, it is.
And you guys started it, and look how it's growing, and look at the impact, I guess, that it's having.
Yeah, it is, and it's amazing the stuff that's happened out there, and I'm really delighted to see that, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and more people, because people are coming. More rural properties are going to be sold. More new people are going to be on these lands. And we want them to do it right, if they're coming here. That's for sure. Well, gosh, we're out of time. Angie, Clint, and Charlie, thanks for being here. JSWCD.org is the website to get a lot of this information, and we thank you very much. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show this week, and this show repeats 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. You can watch all of our shows at realestateshowOregon.com or youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the original Real Estate Show with Pete Belcastro and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys. For advice, guidance, or counsel on any of our topics, or to watch a replay of today's show, visit our website at realestateShowOregon.com. This show is sponsored by RE/MAX, Ideal Brokers of Southern Oregon, Ticor Title, All Cities Property Management, and the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll continue our weekly quest to enhance the value of your property and to make you a smart real estate consumer when we gather every Saturday and Sunday on KMED for the one and only original real estate show.